Hello, everyone. Welcome back into Sports Talk Chicago with John Zaglul. Joey Christopoulos filling in for John today. You can follow me at Joey Sports Guy, but joining us right now in Sports Talk Chicago, returning guest, friend to the show. He has 32 incredible years under his belt. Give us 32 more, good sir. One of the most impactful voices in Chicago sports history. The story of his rise to the top is actually now available. It was called Raging Mouth and available now wherever you get your podcasts. It is Mr. the one and only Mike North. Hello, Mike.
What's going on, my friend? Everything's going good. What's going on with you?
Nothing much. Little rain here in California. Offensive linemen are getting cut left and right. The Chicago Bears are bringing guys on, and we have this little thing called the NFL Draft right around the corner. So excited to have you here on the show.
It's great to be on with you. I was on with you a few months ago. I had a great time, man.
Let's do it again, shall we? So my first question for you, I want to start a little bit on the general side. And look, you've seen it all. You've been around this thing. You've been around this block 1 or 2, 4,000 times, whatever you want to call it. My question for you is, when we talk about the Chicago Bears, when we talk about just this offseason, we'll get to the quarterback in a second, but just this offseason, Mike, how critical is this offseason for the Chicago Bears from what you've seen from your wealth of knowledge over the years?
Well, it's critical for Poles and Eberflus. It's not critical for Chicago Bear fans. It doesn't seem to be too much of a critical thing with Warren, the president. I just see that he hired a COO for the stadium the other day, chief operating officer. He was brought here for the stadium. He's been here a year. What's he been doing? Number one. Number two, every quarterback that's drafted is going to be great. I've found that out since 1963. Every quarterback since I've been a kid is going to be great that's drafted. All these guys are generational, best in a decade, and very rarely do they pan out the way they're supposed to be. So, the Bears are in a quandary. The fans overrated, along with 95. I think I'm the only guy that wanted to keep Mitch Trubisky when everybody else wanted to change. And I had my buddy Carmen DeFalco tell me last week, and it was finally endearing to hear. He said, I never said I wanted Fields. I just didn't like Mitch. I go, well, how's that going? I said, they ruined Mitch because then he went to Pittsburgh and Buffalo. He's just been a traveling vagabond, and he could have still been with the Bears, and they might have made the playoffs one of the last 3 years. Fields, same thing's happening. I think they've treated him harshly the last couple of months, dangling him out there, saying in one breath he could be our quarterback, but in the other breath, they're trying to peddle him. So, sending mixed messages. I just think that they've never done it completely right. They've never treated their quarterbacks completely right. And then I had my buddy from the bar room, Aldo Gandia, great podcast we have there, say the same thing. He's a Fields guy. He says, now I know what you were talking about with the way they treated Trubisky, because I thought Fields was going to be all that, and it's the same way. All of a sudden, he's nobody. And everybody invested in him. And now they're figuring out, he didn't have this, he didn't have that. He had plenty. DJ Moore had a record-breaking year. So they got a decision to make. I don't want Caleb Williams. I'd rather have a veteran. I said this a month ago on my AM 1000 show. I'd rather have Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. I said it right there about a month ago, and all of a sudden they're out there. And the Bears, I don't know. I think they thought they were going to get a lot of demand for the first pick. And the problem is not everybody believes Caleb Williams is that first round pick. Or maybe some teams believe Jaden Daniels is that pick. Other teams may believe it's Bo Nix. Who knows? Or maybe some guy we've never even heard of. So it's not a Manning type thing. If Manning was available, you could get. Why aren't 10 teams breaking the door down to get to the Bears' first pick? Why isn't New England, who picks third, going after him? Why isn't the Raiders going after him? If this guy that I heard Colin Cowherd say is the best college quarterback he ever heard, then where's the 10, 12 teams that all want to deal to get this guy that's been compared to Mahomes? Because it's not true. It's all ridiculous hype, and these guys yearly embarrass themselves for the most part.
That your point is exactly why I wanted to bring you on, Mike, because I think we've got kind of this this binary conversation of there's Justin people, there's Caleb people, when really it's just some sort of weird concentric circle where we just want the Chicago Bears to be as successful as possible. And
I'm not sure of that anymore. I'm not sure of that anymore.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that people still holding out for Fields are just afraid to admit they're wrong, like they've been many times in their life, but they put themselves out there. When I said 95% of the Bear media did not want Mitch Trubisky and was all on board with Justin Field, I meant it. When I said 90%, maybe 80% of the Bears fan base wanted Mitch Trubisky out with the 29-29 record, 64 touchdowns, 37 interceptions. And I got to hear he's a bust. And then I got to hear people carry water for Justin Field, Carmen DeFalco said it to me the other day. Finally. I said, they haven't replaced Mitch. And he says, you're right. You're right. No matter how you felt about him, wasn't replaced. But let's see what happens. But it's the same old song and dance with me.
I mean, we haven't replaced Jay Cutler, if you want to play that game, because he was the last guy who's actually been around for multiple seasons. Well,
that was our mistake.
Version of stability. Well, right, the Phil Emery's, right? But yeah.
We had 8 years of him at $118 million. But here's what people don't know, because the media won't tell it to you. He was 2-11 against Green Bay.
Yeah,
that's for a man. You put that kind of money out. 2-11 against the Green Bay Packers. And his record was 50-50 for the Bears. And they kept him 8 years. You do that for a guy that's won you a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson spent 10, 11 years with Seattle. Deservedly so. Brought him a Super Bowl. Cutler brought nothing but nothing. He brought sourpuss face, no leadership, went 50-50. There was fights in the locker room at halftime, Brandon Marshall in his face. So they finally got it right, but then Nagy didn't like that. He wanted a Mahomes type, and there's only one Mahomes. So they screwed everything up. They got rid of David Montgomery. They got rid of Will Smith. I mean, it's not like they haven't gotten rid of some good players. It's not just Mitch. They got rid of the best linebacker in football, or one of the top three. They got rid of, and I told everybody last year, Montgomery, they'll never replace him. Oh, they're going to do running back by committee. There's no load back that the Bears will ever have, or no four guys. Last year, he carried the ball 9. This is a lot of good stuff, isn't it? You got to admit, this is some good stuff. I got to be honest with you.
I'm lining up the follow-up questions.
You don't even hear it. You better get moving here. Anyway, listen, 933 carries Montgomery had in 4 years. That's a monster. You're carrying 200 times a year. 220 times a year. They don't have a back like that, and he was the best blocker they had, and they just let him walk. So it's the same old nonsense that I've been hearing for 40, 50 years.
Right. So I want to ask you about Russell Wilson specifically in a question,
okay.
but in a second. But you're bringing up something so interesting. Where is it possible? Let's just I don't know. Let's kind of get philosophical about it from a sports Bears fan perspective.
Sure.
Is it possible that we've gotten so obsessed with thinking that one day the clouds will part and a quarterback shall come down and will solve all of our problems, when really there's more to it, right? It's the McCaskies. It's an offensive line. When was the last time we brought in a top tier left tackle? And as you mentioned, just when we get going, we won't pay David Montgomery. And it's this lack of maybe a stability throughout the organization, but we fixate that if we just find the quarterback, all that other stuff will go away.
No, it will never going to happen like that, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. Good analogy. And I got to be honest. I mean, you see what they're doing there. They have no idea. They have no idea how to build a football team. Now, will Ryan Poles be able to do that? Somebody said the other day his only bad trade was Claypool. I said, yeah, but you let David Montgomery walk. You traded Will Smith. And I know you got other players for him. See, my point is the Bears, and the reason we need a veteran, I think the defense is ready. You just signed your kicker to a 4-year deal. He's as good as anybody in the game. Santos the Magnificent. I mean, so what are you missing? You do have good running backs. You still have free agency. You got to improve your line. You did with the signing of the guy from Buffalo. He's going to be a Cody Whitehair type. He's going to be a guy that can play different positions. Maybe you can move him at center, move him at guard. Seems to be doing all right. The Bears tried to sign him a few years back. They didn't get him, and they went after him again. So good for them. So I think that if you got a veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson, and it's only going to cost, and this is right up the Bears' alley, a couple mil, come on.
Not even.
I mean, and I don't buy Sean Payton's excuse. Everybody says, well, what Russell Wilson's done? What's Sean Payton done? As soon as Drew Brees retired, Sean Payton's had nothing but issues.
And the thing with Sean Payton was that turned into a non-football issue with his insurance money. You know what I mean? So they were just trying to save $35 million on.
Well, what he told him is what they basically said, and I've been there before, when they try to cut your salary. And certain people won't go for that. You signed me to this. I threw 26 touchdowns, had 8 interceptions last year. Yeah. I had a 95 rating. I had 3,300 yards. Yet you guys are leaking out that I have an office upstairs or that I basically had some divisions in the locker room. They tried to drive his value down when, in fact, he was there and people go, well, Pete Carroll got rid of him. Okay. Where's Pete Carroll? He's gone. He's upstairs. When he took an advisor's role. That wasn't the plan. If Pete Carroll wins a Super Bowl 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he's no coaching. Yeah. But they got rid of Sherman. They got rid of a lot of guys on that team. But Pete, $39 million, pay me. And now Denver's in real trouble. Let's see how good Sean Payton is now that Denver's got some quarterback. I mean, really. Russell Wilson, to me, is about a $10, $15, $20 million quarterback right now with the year that he had last year. He was a top 10 player, top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, definitely rebounded after the Nathaniel Hackett mess that was the year previous.
But he had a good year that year. If you look, check out his stats. But I get where you're coming from. People forget, though, Jeff. People forget. They're trying to blame Russell Wilson. Denver gave up 70 points in one game early last year. Denver's defense didn't find themselves for six games.
And gave 28 up to the Bears in the first half.
They lost to the Bears. And they had enough points. They gave it up late. And then I'm hearing it's Russell Wilson. No, your defense gave up 70 points in the game, and then the next week you lost to the Bears when you should have beat them. Well, they gave up 28 points to the Bears.
Yeah, right. I mean, again, that feeds a little bit more into that quarterback savior, kind of complex that I think a lot of organizations suffer for, and ones that the Chicago Bears are currently suffering for. So I just want to go further on this. So for you, when you say Russell Wilson, what does this look like to you, Mike? Are you thinking a 1-year bridge deal? Would you be okay with a 2-year deal? And would you be okay with the Bears still drafting a quarterback, whether it is Caleb, whatever your preference is, and have him sit and steward under Russell Wilson?
Yes. Finally, do what Green Bay's been doing for so many years. I mean, look at Jordan Love. They laughed at him. People actually thought they laughed at Fields and said Justin Fields would be heads and tails above him eventually. That's not the case because he watched. And just like Rodgers watched Favre, I mean, they have an excellence in quarterbacks that goes back to 2-time Super Bowl MVP Bart Starr. They know how to get it done. The Bears don't. So what I would do, and I don't care if he was the number 1 pick, I hate people that say you can't draft a wide receiver 1. Okay. So in other words, if people really knew Jerry Rice was going to be Jerry Rice, you wouldn't have drafted a person to draft. In other words, and all these people that think Mahomes was an automatic, nobody wanted Mahomes. No. Kansas City was smart to draft him 10th. But if somebody showed you this is what this kid's going to look like in 3 years, okay, you draft him one. Walter Payton fell to the Bears from Jackson State. If everybody knew what he was going to do, I don't care who your running back is, you take Walter Payton.
Michael Jordan went 3. You know what I mean? I get Akeem. I get it. But the whole Sam Bowie, Clyde Drexler, we already got one. I mean, so the whole thing right there is forever.
It's all, and Purdy went to the Super Bowl, and they didn't. Mel Kiper, I don't think ever mentioned his name in 2 weeks of all the months of draft coverage that they did. I like Marvin Harrison. You trade the 1 pick. You trade the number 1 pick. You get you move up. somehow with the 9 pick, or you try to trade up, I'd like to get Marvin Harrison. If you don't want to trade the number 1 pick, I'd still take Marvin Harrison. You don't get Caleb Williams, let Washington make that mistake. Then I'd start working on the lines with the rest of the draft, and then I'd draft Sam Hartman from Notre Dame in the 5th round if he's still available. Knows how to play the position, unlike Justin Fields, they're still calling a project after 3 years. He was traded up for, and he still doesn't know how to make progressions. He still holds on to the ball. The last Packer-Bear game, the last game of the season, Love had the ball 2.8 seconds, Fields 3.5. He held on to the ball. Can't make the progressions. So then you get Sam Hartman, and then if you got Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins for the Bears, and you think we can't make the playoffs, you're crazy. I'd rather have Cousins, but they won't spend the money. I think if Atlanta gets Cousins, they're going to make it to the playoffs. I think if the Bears get Russell Wilson, we'd have a great shot. Because now DJ Moore is going to be open, and the ball's actually, when he turns around, going to be there. And he still had a great year with 96 catches. But I guarantee you, there were 15 other times he was open that Fields couldn't get him the ball for whatever reason.
Well, and look, the thing that I think that we're aligning on, we're not aligning. Like I had hope for Justin Fields, right? And look, as a Bears fan, I had hope for Mitch Trubisky, and until otherwise, I trend a little.
Well, wait a minute. Wait. Now, what happened with Mitch? Did you want him out? Because I'm curious. Nobody's really answered this. What did he do wrong? He got into the playoffs 2 out of 4 years. He had a high quarterback rating. He led the Bears. He threw 6 touchdowns in 1 game. So I want to know, because you're pretty smart, what did he do wrong? He won, put up pretty decent stats, and then everybody sided with Nagy. You know, I love Bear fans who can't stand Nagy, but every time he made a move, they sided with him. And then we went through the Dalton fiasco. We went through the Foles fiasco, to be benched when, you had a shot to win, and then they brought in Foles in against Atlanta, and we saw that bust. I just want to ask you, because you're a smart guy. You really are. I could tell. How many failures at quarterback do you have to have before you finally realize that it was a mistake to get rid of Mitch Trubisky, number 1? And number 2, how many times are you going to go to the trough with the Bears and believe in every pick they make? Because apparently every Bear quarterback pick, whether it's Dalton, Foles, Glennon, or whatever, every one of you, and I have to say it, meatball fans, threw Mitch aside, and who knows what's going to happen, because, Mitch right now is looking for a team. Just like Baker Mayfield was last year, and they made the playoffs when everybody thought he was done.
Yeah.
See, that's my point. Goff, Mayfield, they were other people's trash. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And Mitch is going to go somewhere where he's not going to be pulled twice. I mean, I love that he got pulled for Pittsburgh after only playing 2 games. Now look at the mess they're in. Now look at Tomlin. You know what the big deal in Pittsburgh is? Oh, he finishes 500. That ain't the point. You don't make it to the playoffs. They've never developed anybody anyway. Who they developed in Pittsburgh? Ben was great when he got there. And Tomlin had him for 18 years? And now look what he's doing. He's an idiot. He's got 3 quarterbacks, and now they were going to deal for Fields. And the combine talk was, it's all cold on Fields now. So I want to know, what did Mitch do?
So here's the thing with Mitch, and I'll be the first to tell you that I have a sweet tooth for blind optimism. I do, right? And I wrap my head around Mitch just like everybody else. Right. That first year, with Fox here, whatever, I thought Mitch did the best that he possibly could. I thought that game versus Detroit at home, I thought that was really impressive.
Yeah, but he's a young guy. He was only 27.
No, I agree. To be very, very, very fair. So when he comes in with Nagy and he starts putting up great numbers, the first small red flag that I had was I just didn't think he played very well in the Rams game. But guess who didn't play well in that Rams game? Jared Goff. So, I mean, that game was a mess from the
my point is, I know what you're saying. I'm not asking. You're legitimately giving me reasons, but what you're saying is that happens to every quarterback.
Oh, I agree. And then we get impatient.
and then we got to go to the next one.
So here's my thing is that I wasn't out on Mitch. I was out on the Nagy-Mitch relationship, and they were never going to move off of Nagy because Nagy showed up to training camp that next year and said, well, you know what? I think we're going to do offense 2.0 instead of building on what made what Mitch's strengths already were.
He screwed him right there.
Let's do it again, and let's repeat until we're so awesome at these 7 or 8 things that maybe we'll add 9 or 10.
Yeah, so then they go out and cut their own throats, and Nagy ruins his career as a head coach. That's what he did.
Correct, and then they bring in competition with Andy and Nick Foles, and lo and behold, who do we have to call? We tap on Mitch. We tap on Mitch for that last month to get us into that playoff game.
Isn't that true? He wins 4 out of 5 in the next year, and then he won't meet with them, Nagy, and then shits on him.
And then sliding doors, you know what I mean? Nagy actually draws up this perfect trick play. Mitch throws this perfect pass, and it goes right through the wide receiver's hands. And that same.
And here, Mitch paid the price.
Game totally.
That's a good. At least you're being straight up. Mitch got screwed by that and by the double doink. Perky makes that kick. We're going to the Super Bowl, and then all this nonsense we're not here for, and they blame Mitch.
Mitch is amazing on that drive too. We don't kick that field goal without Mitch playing really well.
You know what's the best one?
What's that?
Guy asked me, he goes, he threw 6 touchdowns. He goes, that was against Tampa Bay. I go, then why doesn't everybody else do it? And he's like, see, that's the kind of negativity that Mitch had to put up with. And name me a quarterback on the Bears that throws 6 or scores 6 touchdowns in a game. And then we call, and then they leak out to the national guys that he's a bust. And I hear these supposedly intelligent people telling me he's a bust. And then they're going, oh, Fields is going to show the Bears when he goes to the next place. It's been 3 years. He started 35 games, and he's 10-28 total. That's it.
Yeah, I know. But to be also very fair on that, though, Mike, is that, the stink of Nagy emanated onto Justin. Justin was 2-8 with Nagy in that first season too, and there was some.
But Poles stayed with them. They decided that they could do it, and I understand they fell for the ruse. See, his running ability is so great. See, here's why I think he's better than Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams, I saw him against Notre Dame in a couple other games. I'm with Merrill Hodge. I'm a big fan of Merrill Hodges. He's gone from that network because he used to ruin the narratives that everybody else liked. Oh, this guy's great. Merrill Hodge would go, you crazy? Merrill Hodge said, Caleb Williams is not going to be all that. I'm with Merrill Hodge. Now, Fields got out of situations last year, at least 8 of them, including in the end zone. Right? That play in the end zone,
yes.
Williams is on his back. So he's got that going for him. Plus, you pick up maybe another receiver. DJ Moore had a great year, folks. And I mean, now you're going to break that chemistry up. It reminds me so much of when Allen Robinson and Mitch hooked up for 200 receptions in 2 years. I got to hear nonsense. And then Allen Robinson, coached by the Bears, once they got rid of Mitch, says, I'm really excited to play with Justin Fields, right? And Allen Robinson that year has 36 catches. His career is almost over now. Mm-hmm. They ruined his career. They ruined Fields' career. They ruined Trubisky's career. Nagy ruined his own career. And this could have all been avoided. That's my point. The Bears always do the wrong thing. And if anybody thinks the Bears are going to pick the first pick and do the right thing and pick the right pick, you're out of your mind. You haven't been watching.
So Mike, really quick, what is, if you could pinpoint, what is your biggest concern with Caleb Williams at this time, who is, the soup du jour of conversation in Chicago right now?
Well, he's the soup du jour because from the conversation from all the people that wanted Fields and wanted Trubisky out. So they have no credibility, none of them. If you wanted Trubisky out for this and for Dalton and for Foles, how foolish do you feel now? I mean, seriously, he could have been, I know this, if Mitch would have played the last 3 years, we would have been more competitive than we are now. We have not been competitive. So I don't take any advice from Bear media because they've been wrong about Foles and about Glennon and about, I can go through. Glennon. And I said if Fields didn't make it, all the saps, that's what they are, should paint their faces blue and be forced to walk around for a day with the number one saying, me and this guy and that guy and this girl, Justin Day. So stupid. Caleb Williams
Chad Hutchinson used to be a pitcher, Mike.
Yeah.
Remember
You know
that?
what I like for Fields if I was going to keep him with the Bears? Like Taysom Hill. Have him run out of the Wildcat. Have him come in at running back. Have him come in at quarterback. Use him as maybe split him out if he to receiver as a decoy. Pull some double reverses. I mean, if you kept him, you don't have to start him at quarterback because, quite frankly, whoever you bring in deserves to at least compete against them. And the Bears never brought in no competition for Fields because he would have lost.
Well, and really quick, I want to hear Caleb Bloom's point. But when we're talking about Russell Wilson and maybe why at the beginning of the offseason, I thought maybe keeping Justin Fields might be a good idea is because if you could trade that number 1 pick, not only are you thinking about maybe a Marvin Harrison this year, but if you get multiple number 1s in the future years, I think people don't realize that those aren't just draft picks. Take your pick of any player in the NFL.
Absolutely.
It costs a number 1 pick.
You
got it.
We got
you know what I mean? So that would be the other.
Yeah, I'm with you in a way. If you have Russell Wilson, let's say, you can have him watch. I prefer they draft. Let's say they want to draft Penix. Let's say they want to draft. Let's say they move down a little bit from the 1 pick. Let's say they swap with New England, and they move down. They take Bo Nix. Let's say they take I don't want to hear that that certain quarterbacks are cinches to make it and certain aren't. I mean, I'm hearing people say the kid McCarthy. Oh, come on, McCarthy. Are you out of your mind? The Michigan quarterback lineage is as strong as any quarterback lineage in college football. I mean, Tom Brady, Jim Harbaugh, Henson, who was, if you talk, Chad Hutchinson. I mean, you look at they've had some damn good quarterbacks at that school. This kid's another one. So they know how to play the position. How great they're going to be, I don't know. Harbaugh was 35-30, but look what Brady did, and that Caleb Williams throws off his back foot when he's pressured. Caleb Williams played it in the Pac-12, which was notoriously the worst defensive conference in the nation. When he played a defense that focused on just trying to stop him. He played Notre Dame. He had a disastrous night. And that was a night where guys like me said, well, let's watch this guy. And that night, he crapped the bed. Then later on, I watched him crap the bed in another game. But he throws for a lot of yards because they play no D. And it's no doubt he transferred. 3 guys that transferred from other conferences to go to the Pac-12 were the best quarterbacks in college football. Are you starting to get the correlation here? Are you starting to get it? That they didn't play any defense, but when he played a defense, and he had played good against Notre Dame the year before, he played this time, did not impress me. But here's the coup de grace. I just found out what that meant the other day. Pretty good.
Let's use it.
It was a coup de grace. His replacement.
In the bowl game.
Replaced him in the bowl game. And broke the single game touchdown record with Mr. Diva standing there watching him. I'm saying, wait a minute. How's he a once-in-a-generation quarterback when some USC guy sat out? You're playing your backup, and he breaks your record? That's when I said, he's not generational. And then I said to myself, I'm going to ask you, rattle off, because the Bears are famous for it. Remember how the Bears did? The Bears and Ohio State tried to develop a quarterback together, which is impossible. Ohio State can't develop one except Stroud. People said, see, Mike, Ohio State developed a quarterback. You know how long I used the argument that they couldn't develop a quarterback? 57 years it went without them developing a quarterback. They finally did. So now let's go to USC and the Bears, because the Bears and Ohio State here. Why don't you just rattle off the successful USC professional quarterbacks? I'll be over here. You got 2 seconds.
Well, we all know Matt Leinart is great on TV. We also know, who is? I'll
give you one.
Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer, number 1 pick.
And Joe Burrow made everybody forget about him in 2 seasons. So my point is, you had Carson Palmer. That's the one. Pat Hayden, Matt Leinart. I can go out Matt Barkley.
Yep.
Sean Salisbury. These guys were all predicted to go to that next level. And some of them were decent pro quarterbacks. And some of them were better than Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams now has that coming. Now are the Bears actually going to go 2 quarterbacks in a row, one from Ohio State and one from USC? And we expect the Bears and that combination. I'm nervous. That's all I'll tell you. I hope they don't take them, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I have.
You know what you even want to do with them? I mean, you want to keep Fields. See, Bear fans aren't even resolute. Should we keep Fields? Should we trade for a veteran? Should we go for Caleb Williams? I would just ask you this. Apparently, the plan didn't work if these are all the options we're going for.
Well, look, so there's a couple things, right? And some of this is going to sound sacrilege to the people listening, so just deal with it.
Don't worry about it.
To push back on Caleb a little bit, I do think he has a quick release.
Okay.
I do think he actually he does some things with his shoulders and his head that manipulates defenders in the pocket that I think is an intangible that most quarterbacks don't do that I wish they did a little bit more.
I get you. I like the fake.
So yeah. That little shoulder.
I'm understand. See, I'm not a hater. I'm just trying to understand the phenomenon that is him. When I didn't see it.
But the thing that I'm saying is that I see a lot of the same concerns that I have about Justin Fields and Caleb Williams, but he's 3 inches shorter and he's 20 pounds lighter and he's not as fast as the other guy. So could Chicago Bears fans even wrap their head around the idea of, and we've seen this before, we've seen a lot of tangible examples of guys that sit in their first year that go on and learn a lot about the NFL and then come in ready to
in the NFL,
those feet settled in the pocket. But we can't do that in Chicago, right? We couldn't do that to the number 1 pick. That'd be insane, right?
Yeah, we got to play him right away and ruin him. That's what we got to do. We can't sit a guy for 3 years. Well, I come back to go back so far where Zeke Bratkowski, I mean, there was no free agency. So guys like Zeke Bratkowski backed up Bart Starr for 8 years. They started very sparingly. Guys like Gary Quazzo backing up Johnny Unitas. If there would have been free agency, these guys won titles with their teams. They would have been able to make more money and gone to other teams, but they didn't have that. So now you have these decent quarterbacks back then who couldn't even start because the better player, I mean, when you're playing behind Johnny Unitas and Bart Starr, I mean, it's going to be tough to even break the lineup unless there's an injury. Now, my point about Russell Wilson is simple. I'll just go back to one great player, Joe Montana. Kansas City was not Kansas City for a long, long time. And they decided, they decided to take Steve Young and move Joe Montana out. Joe Montana says, I'll go to Kansas City. A lot like Russell Wilson. Nice deal, everything else. They made the playoffs. It was a bridge, didn't work out after he left. But, that's the thing. The Bears need to get into the playoffs. Enough of this. Let's wait 3 more years because this guy is going to be as good as that guy, and he's going to be. Sid Luckman was good, but this guy. Are you out of your minds? We need to make the playoffs. So let's get into playoffs. And if you picked up Wilson or Cousins tomorrow, nobody's going to tell me if you keep Fields or pick up Caleb Williams that they have a better chance of getting in the playoffs than Cousins or Russell Wilson with this team. Nobody. It's called experience. I mean, Cousins has 7 4,000-yard seasons. The Bears have never had one, ever.